From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. James, how are you today? I'm looking forward to our conversation, and we're going to be talking about some things that I think a lot of people will be able to relate to.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this topic, Steve. I'm doing good. And how are you doing?
Doing well. As we said in our previous episode, we're recording at a good time of year, so it's maybe there's some increased enthusiasm as we look to a new year. We're at the end of 2024. This will come out sometime after that, but it's when people reflect a bit and they think about some of the things that they did well that they can improve upon and maybe come up with some plans for the new year. With that said, we talked about this just briefly in our previous episode, and we thought we would expand upon it. It's the idea of time management and discipline, and that's something I think that everybody can relate to. It's something that most people struggle with because if you aren't struggling with it, maybe you're not trying hard enough. But you, we all have to make sometimes tough decisions. We have to reprioritize, and we have to figure out. We only have so many hours in the day, so I'll throw it over to you from your perspective. What are some what are some things that give you pause to say that this is a important topic, and then we could talk about what are some things that we do about it.
So it's an important topic because I'm trying to think of where I heard this. I heard this from I think a good friend who said, if you don't schedule your time, somebody else is.
Yeah.
And it is very true. Like if you are not, I mean, I got a family and I got a job. If I'm not saying, okay, at this time I am doing this, my wife is either filling that time slot or my kids are filling that time slot or work is filling that time slot. Something else is going to fill that time slot. So if you're not scheduling it, somebody else is scheduling it for you. So definitely being mindful of that, and that's why it's important time management and being disciplined is a good one. So discipline has really taken on a new meaning for me lately. And actually, our as our audience should be aware of, if you're not, listen through our past episodes, you'll hear me and Steve talk about that. I'm an avid reader now. One of the books I just finished reading was called Extreme Ownership. It's written by a couple Navy SEALs, retired Navy SEALs, and great book. I can't recommend that book enough for all the great information in it. But the last chapter is what has stuck with me the most. Pardon me. And they talked about being disciplined, and authors go in saying if they wanted more time in a day, apologize. If you wanted more time in your day, you need to find that time and you need to be disciplined about that time. And talk about if you look at the best operators in the SEAL teams, they're the operators who get up early, say 4, 5 in the morning. They do the workout, they tend to the gear, and then they get on with the day. Doesn't matter how late they're out. They can still party with the team. They can still be crazy, do all that stuff, but they're disciplined. They get up at the same time, they do the workout, they tend their gear, and they're the best operators in the SEALs. And then I expanded that more. I'm like, well, you look at the best athletes, they're the same way. They are disciplined in their craft. They might go crazy, party, all that stuff, but then again, they're still disciplined. They get up, they work out, they do what they need to do to hone their craft. Then you look at business leaders. Look at anybody. Look at anyone you admire who's saying, okay, they're the best of the best in whatever they do. They got to be disciplined in that craft. They're, best writers out there are the ones who sit down and write every day. They're disciplined in it. The best programmers are the ones who probably sit down and program every day. So putting that effort in, and I've actually started attending that in my life. I started up getting up at 5 a.m., to work out. Do I get up at 5 a.m. every morning? No. Like if I don't have work, like if I don't have to be out the door for work at a certain time, I'm not getting up at 5 a.m. I do like my sleep, but I still work out every day. I put in at least 30 minutes. So if I do have work, I'm getting up at 5 a.m. I do a 30-minute workout, then get ready for the day. If I know my night is going to be jam packed, I got nothing else, like I can't do anything at night, then yeah, I'm working out in the morning. I at least get a work, I'm being dedicated or disciplined in getting my 30 minutes workout in. I'll pass it over to you, Steve. What are
No,
your take on it?
no, that was gold right
Yeah.
there. So everybody should really listen to what James just said because one, he's quoting it from a proven source, and secondly, he's put it into practice, and this is something that I've heard many times. There's a very simple book called Eat That Frog, and I wouldn't say that it's something that you're going to put on your reading list, but you could read it in an hour. And it basically talks about the fact that if you're going to eat a frog, it should be the first thing that you do because then everything else gets easier. So, pick that one thing that you don't want to do the most and get it out of the way, and you get energy from that. The other side of it is um, James talked a lot about waking up early and making the most of your day because then you'll have time later on to do the things that you might want to do in your free time, or you may have free time to do other things. And I also subscribe to that. I would also say that for some people, the way their body works, they work really well in the afternoon or in the evening, and I don't want to discount that. But the idea is to protect the time when you're going to be most productive and when you're going to get into flow and you're going to be able to really get the most out of the time that you put in. And I'm sure that uh, our audience has heard about time blocking and things like that, but these are all different techniques that you could use. And I think from a programmer's perspective, and this is something that I hear from my team and that I'm sure others will relate to, is that programmers typically want uninterrupted time to be able to get in the zone and do what they're doing and be able to almost escape into their code. And then all of a sudden they don't know where the time went, and 3 hours later they've gotten a lot done, and it feels like it was 5 minutes. And so that's kind of my definition of flow, is that you almost escape into this way of being like ultra productive. So I always like to try to bring this back to the what our listeners can relate to, but I think all very valid points. And like you said, if you bring in the discipline part, is you have to protect that time,
Yep.
and sometimes that is you know putting it on your calendar. Sometimes it's going dark and saying, I'm just not available. I'm not going to respond to any of my devices or anything. And sometimes it's just being able to say no to temptation.
Yeah, and I think you hit on there because I know I do that as programming too. I'll get in the zone, and then next and I know it's 3, 4, 5 hours has passed, and whatever came out of it came out of it. And I know some of our listeners might be sitting there and be like, "Well, I don't have that kind of time. I can't do that." I get that too. Like my busy schedule, I can't spend 3, 4, 5 hours programming. Just can't. So how do you prevent getting in that flow with disruption, other things? And I actually I learned this from Lex um Lex Evans. I heard her on a podcast and I talking about this, and I actually take it in practice too, is set an alarm. So if anyone listened to our last episode, I talked about during this Christmas break, I've been dedicating an hour a day to work on some training. I'm the type of person I'll just sit there and go through it. I can sit at the computer all day working on stuff, but that's not fair to my family, not fair, my own time and all that stuff. So I actually set a timer on my phone, 1 hour. Second that alarm goes off, I finish what I'm doing, close out, I'm done. Could I sit there and do more? Yes, I could. But it allows me to set that schedule, set that time, be that discipline, do that time blocking, honor it. Like my family understands too. Like if I say, "Hey, I'm going to go do an hour of training," it's going to be an hour. It's not going to be like, "Oh, I'm going to go do an hour of training," and then 6 hours later I come out of the office. No, it's I'm in there for an hour, I leave. So they can respect that time too, because they know, okay, he's only going to be unavailable for about an hour. Um, same like when we do these podcast recordings. Like we have it on our calendar. I block that time off. That's time to do these recordings, and people know, okay, not to interrupt me during this time. And then once that time's over, then my schedule's changed. My focus changed. I'm now away from doing what I was doing and moved on to the next task.
I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense too. You're asking people to respect that you're focusing on something, and then you're also giving the respect of saying, I'm done when I'm done, and I'm going to move on to being available, and you can count on that, and that's a commitment that I'm making. So and which is hard.
It is. It's hard. And that's where you got to get back to being the discipline. And I know a lot of books talk about habits, building habits, and you want to find triggers to help you build the new habits. And that's what you really are doing is building a habit. If you want to be a reader, sitting down and reading and all that stuff, you build that habit to be a reader. If you want to be, a writer, same thing, habit. It all does stem from being disciplined into building that habit. Um, Finding those triggers that can help you, alarm or setting, well, when I do this, I will then do that. Like for me, reading is right before I go to sleep. So when I get in bed, I get out my Kindle, I read, put it down, and I go to bed. Um, it's that mindset, like, okay, now I'm in bed, now I'm reading. I get my 10 pages, and there I'm being disciplined too. I do 10 pages. I set that goal, I read my 10 pages, no matter where I am, I bookmark it and I put it down.
It's very admirable, and I am also a big believer in habits and routine, and the it takes repetition in order to build a habit, like you said. The whole timer idea too. If anybody wants to look up the Pomodoro method, that's one of those things where they tell you to work on one thing and do sprints. So you figure what is the right amount of time that you're going to dedicate to working on a task, and then take a break after you, and you schedule that break so that you could switch gears and refresh, and then you move on to the next thing, and you do a series of them so you're not caught distracted in thinking about other things. You're working on this one thing for a small amount of time. So it's just another technique.
So that makes me say, and I know we're talking about like we're sitting here saying, oh, you need the time block and you set alarms and be respectful. And I'm sure our audience understand that. And I'm sure our audience are yelling at the radio, go, how do you do that when your boss is coming to you and saying, I need X, Y, and Z done? Or hey, your spouse is coming to you and saying, I need X, Y, and Z done now. Like, so as a manager, as a owner of company, say, well, let me toss this to you. How do you provide that flexibility for your team to have those time blocking or doing those sprints or whatever term we want to use, but also, handle the daily operation of the business?
Yeah, I think what you're asking is the $1 million question, and it's not something that we've been able to come to overnight because it requires negotiation, it requires trust, it requires being able to see results and being able to be open-minded, being able to understand that everybody, you have to respect other people's priorities and their time, and that and not always putting your needs first. Um, so for me, because I've kind of been a student of this, it's something that I was a lot more receptive to, but it's still hard. And because we're a remote team, I think it makes it a little easier because you can't just walk up and bother somebody. Um, the way we bother each other is through a Slack message, or maybe reaching out to them to bring them into a Zoom call. Um, but what we at least I have been trying to do, and one of the things that I did in this new year is invest in using an appointment scheduling tool. So it's forced me, because I'm giving free reign of my calendar to somebody else to book time with me. I have to make sure that I block out time that I'm not available. And I think that that's been a great exercise, because the first few times when somebody schedules a time that you really didn't want to have this meeting, you learn that you have to make sure that you protecting your time. So I think it requires the the short answer to this is that you should practice what you preach. So if I'm going to tell to if my team is going to do it, I should be doing something similar, and we should adopt that as the way something within our culture. But we also have to maybe start small, and maybe it's blocking out an hour where you're not available, or 2 hours where you're not available, and as you said, but then you're available right after that. So you know what? Everybody can wait an hour or two. I mean, I know that that seems like it could be an eternity, and if it's an emergency, a true emergency, then you deal with it. But most times it's not.
I agree. And what I've done as a manager with my team is we have it where we see each other's calendars. Um, they can see my calendar when I'm busy and not. I can see their calendar. So I've actually asked them, like, especially for their lunchtime. I'm a big person of take your lunch. And I know it goes to what you say, Steve. Do if you want your team to do it, you got to do it. I miss many of my lunches. But that's like my own personal thing. Like I don't mind it sometimes. Most of the time, I don't mind it. Um, but I honor my team's lunch, and a couple times, like I would try. I learned their habits of when they tend to take their lunch, and then I tried not to schedule things. And a couple times that I've gotten a schedule, and someone's like, "Oh, I was going to take lunch at this time," so I actually told my team, I'm like, "Look, put it on your calendar. If you want lunch at this time, put it on your calendar. I'm going to do my best to honor that time and not book you anything at that time." And I go, and don't think you have to hold to it. Like, say, every day you want to take lunch at 1 o'clock, but on Friday you have to go to your HOA office for your apartment, but you got that at 10 o'clock. That's fine. Just change your calendar that's saying, hey, you're taking your lunch at 10 o'clock that day. And, I'll honor that time that when you put it on your calendar. So I've been doing the same thing with mine. Like if I don't want to be tired, I throw on my calendar, hey, this is what I'm doing at this time. Um, a lot of times I wish other people would honor that because sometimes I get triple or double or triple book on meetings at the same time. I'm like, hey, look at my calendar. I'm already booked at this time.
That's really great. Um, Sharing calendars is a huge tool, especially if you work closely with certain people on a team. You know, you're respecting them, and you're just asking them to let you know when they're available.
Yeah.
So you give them the opportunity for you to respect them. So I guess wrapping this one up, what aside from what we discussed before, from a programmer's perspective, is there one main thing that you would say would be a good first step that somebody should do, where if they're going to work toward having a more manageable schedule and taking this opportunity to try a new strategy for the new year?
I would say yes. My suggestions is don't give up after a failure. We all are gonna fail. Like, you're gonna say, "Hey, I'm gonna, get up at 5 a.m." or "Hey, I'm gonna block out my lunch block," or whatever what practice you want to choose, and say, you did good for 3 days, and then the fourth day you miss. Doesn't mean you start back at zero. Start where you're at. Okay, I did for 3 days. Oh, let me try it next time doing four in a row. And pushing that a little further and a little further, and it starts building onto it. And people then starts building that respect around that and be like, okay, like especially if it's gonna be your lunch one. Okay, this person is gonna take lunch at this time. Now I already know that, and I build schedule around that. Or, hey, this person's going to get up at like, my spouse is going to get up at 5 a.m. Okay. They're getting out of bed. I'm not going to be like, why are they getting out of bed? You respect that now. If you build that habit, you be disciplined in it. But again, it's coming back to is you're gonna fail. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna be like something's gonna come up at that time that you have to change. Don't let it derail your whole progress.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. It's a really great tip. I kind of mine would be similar in that you should start small, so that you can build on success. So don't try to have goals that are so big that they're not attainable. Try to take uh, smaller bites so that you can find that you can do something and then you could just build upon that. And I would also encourage managers to talk to their team about it, and lead by example as we discussed, and then also for um, team members to encourage their managers to be thoughtful about the fact that I believe that I can be a better producer for you and more effective if you give me the ability to block out some time or have try some new techniques and report back to them and show them that you've if they grant you that permission that you've put it to good use.
I think that's right there, key. It just goes back to our last episode, is a value. What value are you getting from doing this? Are you also giving value back? And same thing. It's like, okay, as a manager, if I'm giving you that respect of that block, like you're going to use it as a sprint to work on code, or in our world here as programming, you work on code. Great. Did you use that time valuable? Am I seeing, I gave you an hour. Am I seeing that return on an investment from you? Um, or are you just wasting, taking an hour of leisure time? Which, don't get me wrong, if you need an hour of leisure time and you can talk to, but make sure that people know that the time what you're using it for. Like if you say, hey, I need an hour to program, and you're using it at leisure time, you're going to lose that trust and respect from your manager. So they're not seeing the return. But if you go and be like, hey, I need an hour of my day just to do nothing, to zone out, to like leisure time, I'll be more productive. Okay. Then I need to see you more productive the rest of the time. You get that hour of leisure time. Like, don't misrepresent what you're trying to do.
Yeah, yeah. Because sometimes just like you said, having a break to recharge, like a lunch or just doing something for yourself is going to help you be more productive when you get into the next block of time that you're focusing. So all great stuff. I hope that our audience finds this valuable. I know that a lot of this can sound idealistic. I know that this can be hard. Let's talk about it. That's what we're here for. We want to support you. We want to build community. We want to share what we know. We're certainly not here to preach. We're here to share and help everybody be more effective and just be able to learn from each other. So those discussions happen in our LinkedIn group called Ask the Programmer. So check that out. Please reach out to either of us with your comments and feedback, or you can post those online. James, how could people, if they were interested, reach out to you and continue this conversation?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it these days, at AB_James King. I'm on Blue Sky, LinkedIn, in our community on LinkedIn. I'm in there. Again, Google me, you'll find me.
Absolutely. And James mentioned Blue Sky. I think that's a platform that is gaining more adoption in the AV space. So please check us out there. For me, you could reach me at Steve Greenblatt on social media. LinkedIn's another place that I spend a lot of time as well. But message us and let us know why you're reaching out so that we know to respond or accept a connection. And we really would like to know that you're out there and to engage with you. My company, Control Concepts, supports this show, and what we do is help provide the building blocks that programmers can use to help get their projects done more effectively and efficiently, whether integrating products or adding more functionality. Um, those tools can be found on our website at controlconcepts.net. And we hope that if you are watching us on YouTube, you listen to us on your favorite podcast player. And if you're listening to us, you could check us out on YouTube as well. And we track the stats and the views, and we would like to know that you're out there. And all your feedback really means a lot to us. Is that if you would share your favorite episode, we would really appreciate that, and it would be an honor. And until next time, this has been Ask the Programmer.